Hello and welcome to Pitch Perfect, HaytersTV's women's football show. I'm Ayisha Gulati and I'm joined by Gurav and Lucy Casey. We've got a dramatic week of football to discuss. Chelsea secured their sixth successive WSL title. Man United secured Champions League football while City missed out. And of course, London City Lionesses got promoted to the WSL in a dramatic end to the championship. So we'll be discussing all that. So let's get started because so much to get through. Only one place to start, guys. I know as two Arsenal fans, this might not be where you wanted to start, but we've got to give credit to Chelsea. A sixth successive title. It feels like they've been coasting for a long time, but coasting's the wrong word probably because it's been impressive. But at the end, no one gave them a run until the end, really, did they? They wrapped it up last Wednesday at Manchester United after Arsenal dropped points earlier that night to Villa, a huge loss. But just a word on their win. What do we make of their victory on Wednesday night?
I mean, I feel like it's been a classic Chelsea win recently, where obviously up until Christmas, I thought, right, well, this is basically Chelsea's season. They've done it. And then suddenly their form sort of just dropped off a bit, but they always find that winning goal. Somehow they always get that equaliser, that late winner. And obviously it was Lucy Bronze. And
of course, it was Lucy.
I feel like she deserves that. Like, honestly, I think especially after being knocked out to Barcelona, her former club, I feel like she had that passion in her. And you always see on the pitch when Chelsea maybe aren't performing as well as they are expected to, or they usually do, I feel like she definitely is the one to get them going again. So for her to get that goal, she definitely deserved it. And obviously it was lucky for Chelsea. But I mean, it didn't really matter because Arsenal obviously lost that evening. And Arsenal's season has gone down. So I feel like Chelsea, like you said, I feel like coasting is probably the right word. They've just been able to sort of see the season out. So.
Yeah, they've not been phenomenal in the second half of the season. I think at the beginning of the season, they were really impressive. And at the end, they've just kind of wrapped it up a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you look at some of their stats, and I think unless they score something like 8 goals before the end of the season, it's going to be their lowest goal tally that they've had ever, I think, in the WSL, which is quite surprising. And you look at some of the names that they brought in, and obviously Sonia Bonpastor, this new era that they were meant to have. And even that game against United, I did think United were actually the stronger team for most of that game, so kind of unlucky for them. And the FA Cup final is going to be really interesting because for Chelsea now, they're all about this unbeaten season, about the treble, because they are really disappointed about the Champions League. You can see it in their eyes. Even the celebrations were so dull and muted. Even against Spurs yesterday, I think, or day before even, I didn't think Chelsea were outstanding by any stretch of the imagination. So they're obviously, I think, feeling the after effects of not having got the thing that they really, really want to. And Arsenal just opened the door for them, didn't they? They could have drawn against United.
Just gave it to them.
Honestly, just
and small margins, like you say, a low goal tally, but it could be the highest points tally if they win this weekend. They'd reach 60 points, which would surpass their already the highest total, which was 58 before. So that in itself is impressive and shouldn't be sniffed at. But we got some post-match reaction from Sonia Bonpastor following her victory over Man United on Wednesday night, just saying how they would celebrate and what winning the WSL means to her.
Yeah, it feels great. I told to some players and some staff after the game, it feels a little bit unreal because we were probably not expecting to achieve that tonight. I was not expecting Arsenal to drop points against West Ham. So yeah, we were focusing ourselves. We just wanted to come here and bounce back again after the defeat on Sunday. I told my players basically it hurts to be knocked out Champions League campaign, but we are professionals. We need now to focus on the game on Wednesday against Man United and to be able to get a step closer to the title with focusing on how we can get a win here.
And how will you celebrate? Do you have any plans?
Myself or with the team?
Both.
I would say with the team, just simple things, just being all together, singing as you can hear them. I can hear them behind, and celebrating with maybe a little bit of champagne on the way back, but not too much. And for me, maybe kissing my kids tomorrow morning with maybe on the way back some chocolate in the bus. It will be. But I'm someone really simple, but just enjoy because it's.
More chocolate for Sonia Bompastor. She's a lucky lady this season. Plenty of chocolate for her. Remember to get your comments in. Please do send them. We want to get you involved in the conversation. We'll be doing some hot takes in women's football later as well. So please do send your hot takes. We'd love to hear them. Get involved. So they beat Spurs, like you mentioned, on Sunday. Mm-hmm. They are unbeaten. Can they be unbeaten for the rest of the season? They just need to not lose on Saturday, and it will be another invincible season.
I mean, I don't really see them losing points at this point in the season. I feel like for them that would probably be the most gutting thing when they've done so well throughout the whole season, and they've got such a good squad. They've got multiple players for each position that it's almost impossible for them to drop out. I do feel like Man United in the last few games, they have obviously had quite a tricky run in. They've literally had Chelsea, City, Arsenal, whereas for Chelsea they've actually got supposedly more of the easier sides. I mean, I think United was the hardest side they had to face in the last 3 games, so for them they definitely can finish this season unbeaten.
I mean, is it Leicester though? I feel like I have it in my head that it's Leicester they face.
They're Liverpool. Yeah, they face
Liverpool. I was like, I knew it was L. So
I mean, Liverpool, they're not an easy side.
They're not, but I don't see them at this point in the season, especially the performance in the Merseyside derby at the weekend. Mm-hmm. I don't see Liverpool being able to put up a fight. Although, having said that, it was that game late on last season, the 4-3, wasn't it? The Liverpool beat Chelsea. So if they can channel that performance. But I think when you're Chelsea, if you're going into the final day knowing that you have the chance to write your name in as invincibles, I mean, we always talk about the kind of men's Arsenal invincibles, right? And how amazing that they are. And, you know, jokes aside, this Chelsea team are just incredible. I saw someone commenting about Sandy Baltimore on the feed there. And it's those names, I think, the kind of names like Sandy Baltimore, Vicky Captain, those names who have just been so steady all season that have actually managed to kind of grind out these results that we talk about. And people like Hannah Hampton, you know, just being reliable all the time. That's what gets you a team like this. And you don't have to have maybe so many stars of the game. But yeah, full credit to Chelsea, as much as it pains me to say it.
Yes, that comment was from Kucha Criminal, who said, Sandy Baltimore, what a player. And yeah, I think we all agree what a player she's been.
Their recruitment has been so good in general, though. And that's one thing in terms of their future and the future of the WSL title race. Because Chelsea are winning, they're getting the money. So they're being able to fund this recruitment. And year on year, they're improving and almost separating. That's why at Christmas, I was like, well, Chelsea have pretty much won. And then obviously the last few weeks, there was a bit of a delusional title race. Maybe we were sort of like holding on thinking, maybe we can do it. But generally, I think they're just going to go from strength to strength, which is scary to see in the women's game. But whether they can then compete in Europe in that same way, that's obviously probably, I guess, their main aim for next season.
Well, this is the one thing I was going to say, and we talked about this briefly last week, with that kind of calibre of player that they have. The one thing you do sort of think for Chelsea with Sonia Bompastor, yes, she is obviously a really good manager. But if they are recruiting players of that quality, why can't they break this Champions League curse? Why can't they quite get past the likes of Barcelona? Because, you know, I think I said last week, you look at the Arsenal squad and there's no reason why they can't beat Barcelona when you put them up man to man. Chelsea squad, oh my God, there is absolutely no reason why they shouldn't be able to beat that Barcelona squad, because the quality that they have, certainly when you put them up against each other, you think, yeah, on paper, Chelsea are absolutely up there. So I think that's the one thing. Yes, I know they keep winning the WSL, but can they actually win the Champions League? I'm not sure yet.
Yes. Well, we have another comment actually from Rondelisha Parker. You're just talking about Arsenal there. And Rondelisha says Arsenal will drop to mid-table. So that's a bit of a hot take. I will.
That is.
Yeah. We will come on to discuss Arsenal in a little bit. But I think we're mentioning Champions League. I think our next line of discussion has to be the derby at the weekend. And of course, there was Champions League football on the line there. And both teams knew what they had to do. And it was Man United who were able to hold City to a draw in the end to get what they wanted, that Champions League football. City's hopes now gone there. We've spoken about their tough season. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. But for Man United, how important was this, missing out this season on Champions League and now proving their worth again?
It's huge for them. And also when you look at the fact, not only that they're going to get Champions League, but they actually have the opportunity to go into second place next week if they do beat Arsenal and then potentially miss out on that extra stage, which can prove such a kind of stumbling block for so many teams, I think. But you look at the kind of players that they've got. And I think Man United, you do feel for them so much of the time, because I think as a club, the administrators need to do better when it comes to backing the women's team, because they have now proven what they're capable of. The money that they're going to get from going into this Champions League phase is huge. And I also think they won't be as reliant on maybe the club to say, okay, please back us here, because look, we proved to you what we can do. They are now that club that, yeah, we looked at them a couple of seasons ago when they lost the WSL just on goal difference. Now they've got this mission to win it by 2028, I think it is, which maybe that's a little bit ambitious, but I'm not actually sure, because if they keep going on the path that they're on, why couldn't they beat, everyone else by 2028? Certainly this FA Cup final is going to be huge for them. And I think they'll feel that they can beat Chelsea, because based on recent form, I think they've been better.
No, definitely. I feel like they've definitely turned a corner recently. I mean, we saw big names like Alessia Russo, Mary Earps all leaving, Nikita Paris, and I was thinking, what is going wrong with United? Then obviously there's been so many mistakes made by the club as a whole, to put it lightly, obviously in terms of the men's team and prioritising them, and obviously what the owners have come out and said. But right now, focusing on the football itself, I think signing people like Clinton, Bissett, like honestly, they've done so unreal with those players. And for Ella Toon, I think someone who has been at the club for so long, she deserves this. I mean, when you mentioned how the qualifying stages of the Champions League are tricky, I'm pretty sure they've only qualified in 2023, so a couple of years ago, and they stumbled at the first hurdle, basically. Obviously, as Gooners, we know what that feels like, and it is so tricky to get past that first stage. So I'm hoping that this season they can actually progress, because obviously, as much as I don't support the club, I'd love to see English teams getting further in the competition, because I mean, we had Arsenal, City and Chelsea all in the quarterfinals, and that's so exciting for the English game. So I definitely hope that they will do well, and it's so good they managed to do it. I feel bad for City. Like you said, I feel like their season has been, it started off well, and then it sort of dipped in form. I mean, they were so close to getting the Subway Cup. In my opinion, they deserved that in the final. They were the better team. Then obviously they were in the quarterfinals on the front foot, and then Chelsea beat them, and then obviously now in this title race and trying to get the European race, trying to get European football, they've just fallen short. And it is so frustrating. You can see on all the players on their Instagram posts and everything.
Yes, well, we've spoken about the importance of Champions League football, and we caught up with Mark Skinner following the match, and he gave his take on just how important securing Champions League football is for the team, but also with regards to attracting new talent.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. It has to. The next question is you got to recruit the right way. I think we saw City drop off this year just basically because of injuries. No, it's not the quality of the team and the quality of players. They're just the injuries they've had to those players. So, in order to go into the depths of like Champions League, and actually from our perspective, qualify for Champions League group stage, because that's the next ask, is we've got to add that depth and that quality of play in the depth, so that they can change the game. We have a good depth, but we need a little bit more. But Champions League gives you that, and it gives you that recruitment. People want to come to a Champions League team, so hopefully it opens that market for us, and we need to be very good in that space, I think, for us to push forward. You're absolutely right, Em, because the club has a big status, but the women's team has a young status. So we've been we qualified 2 seasons ago, but now we've done it again. So it does give us, it's a status. And again, I know what Nick was saying, because when we have recruitment calls, it's all about if you get to Champions League, and that's what the agents say. So for us in the pool we want to shop in, where we're in a pool of like a Chelsea and Arsenal, so who spend big money. So for us to get the right people just opens the opportunity for us to be better, and that's what we want. I want my players out there to be challenged, to get the best out of them as well. So yeah, it does open up, and that status gives you it just opens up more.
Yes, Skinner discussing the importance of Champions League football there, and he's had a bit of a hard time, has done over the last few seasons. Is that fair? United have impressed me this season. It might not have been amazing, beautiful football, free-flowing scoring, but the clean sheets, the team feels like a proper team, like they're playing like together. He said it before about them feeling like a family, and people like Ella Toon. We've had a comment about Ella Toon and how pleased people are for her to get Champions League football. But what is it about United and maybe about Skinner that draws some comments?
Yeah, it's so funny to think that I think it was even earlier this season you had the fans calling for Skinner out and all these horrible protests, which for a manager must be so hard to endure, I think. But I think it comes back to that season when they won the FA Cup, where they didn't finish where they should have finished in the league. And you're looking at the league as more of an indicator, I think, of how successful a manager is, because that's about a prolonged spell of consistently performing. And yes, we know Man United have a bit of a pattern of, even if they have a bad season and their club wins the FA Cup, well, they'll give the manager a new contract, and look how that worked out on the men's side. And I think obviously that's worked out very differently for the women's team this season. Is Mark Skinner that top manager to bring them to the WSL? I'm not convinced. I really have a lot of respect for him, and I think what he's done this season has been great. But I do just sense that there have been moments with Man United where there seems to be this ceiling that they hit. And I don't know if it is the manager, maybe it is new signings. Maybe we should judge him on this next season. But the problem is, I think when you're a club like Man United, there is that sense of ruthlessness. And maybe you have to go out there and get a manager who you know can take you to top heights, because that's what Chelsea have done with Sonia Bonpastor and that kind of thing. So I think that's where the kind of reluctance comes from with some fans.
No, definitely. I feel like it is a tricky one, because coaches and managers a lot of time are almost used as a scapegoat. So, I mean, you see with Arsenal start of the season, Jonas Eidevall, even having Eidevall out, or Jonas out outside the Emirates Stadium, that was so unfair. But it was pretty much, if you ask any Arsenal fan, it was like 90% of the fan base thinking it. So as much as obviously the voices of a lot of fans, they can be quite fragile in the sense of, oh, so we're doing well, let's keep the manager, we're losing, let's get rid of them. And I don't like that indecisive nature, but I do realise that is something that is in football, that is basically what happens. And they wouldn't just be making up. There have been instances, you'd see it on social media, I'd scroll through and I'd see instances where maybe he interacts with players in a way that people aren't too happy with. So obviously out of context, it's hard to say, but now he's got United obviously into the Champions League, I feel like this could be different. And like you said, they'll probably end up keeping him. And then I guess we'll see Christmas time whether he'll go or not.
Well, yeah, of course. And time will tell with regards to their Champions League success. Like we mentioned, Saturday is a huge game. United versus Arsenal. Yes, they've scored Champions League football, but that difference between second and third place is so big. It's like a mini tournament if you come third before you get to the next bit. It's like, horrible, it's hard work. Like, it's not a time you're starting earlier than you want to be starting playing football. You don't have as much pre-season that you want. Like, it's just so many ramifications.
Also on that, sorry, I've realised that there's I'm pretty sure it's only 2 or 3 days since the Euros. And I was like, there's no time for recovery. So some players that will hopefully be getting far with their national team.
England.
I don't want to be biased, but yeah, England. Hopefully, obviously there's a lot of English people in the WSL, so then it is a very tricky one. Like
well, not to mention now this World Sevens tournament that now both of the Manchester teams are in. So it's like, when on earth are they going to have a rest? I have no idea.
Yeah, the fixture congestion is becoming mad. Crazy. Well, the team to miss out, of course, were Manchester City. And we spoke with Nick Cushing following their draw at Old Trafford.
Ultimately, we fell short of the standard and the expectation of Manchester City women, right? Me included. I was brought here on March 11th to deliver Champions League and win trophies, and we fell short. Now there's a lot of challenge and context in that, but it's painful, right? But this is football. In these moments, it's about the reaction. It's about how you find the solutions to the problems that you faced. And when I look at the group and I look at the staff, I've got every confidence that the solutions will be found.
Yes, Nick Cushing there talking about falling short. He doesn't use the word failure, but I think that City fans and people would see it as a failure. They missed out on the WSL title last year just on goal difference. I think it would be fair to assume that they would have reached top 3 this year, riddled by injuries, of course. We've spoken to death about that. But is that an excuse? Should they have done better?
I feel like it can't be an excuse anymore, because injuries happen to every team. I know obviously a few seasons ago when we're looking back at Arsenal, we had so many ACLs. We had about 3 or 4, and that did affect our season. But then you're still able to perform to a decent level. I think that City have just been pretty unlucky. They were, like I said earlier, the better side in the Subway Cup final. They should have won that. And that's obviously straight away when the new manager came in. And then obviously now with the Champions League, the quarterfinals they went out, and with this they were 2-0 up and then just lost it. Like, they have been so unlucky that I think for City fans, like you said, they might not see it as a failure necessarily, but they definitely will see it as false hope, because they were going into the last month of football thinking, okay, we could win a few trophies here, maybe, obviously competing with the likes of Chelsea, but I think it's the hope that kills you for them.
Is it unlucky? You said it's unlucky that they were 2 up. I feel like that's
Yeah.
poor game management. Like, United ended up
Yeah.
going down to 10. They had,
I mean, they
Hemp,
need to take
Greenwood back.
advantage.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I go so back and forth with this thing about City's injuries, because yes, absolutely. I think at one point you could make a full like outfield 10 players with the injuries they had on the bench, and it was ridiculous having Miedemar, Bunny Shaw, Jill Roord, Greenwood, Hemp, all of these players out, because that team on their own could probably win the WSL when they're at full capacity. But it's these results where you're 2-0 up against United, where you've got an advantage heading into the second leg against Chelsea, because that shows that your injuries clearly aren't hampering you from getting to a winning position. What the injuries are supposedly hampering you then from holding your clean sheet, is it the back line then? But then you get back to this issue that I think we've had for a while, where it's City's defence is the problem. And without Alex Greenwood, yes, I know she was playing, but you can't expect that much from her in her first game back, right? But it's like that back line is just not fit for purpose. And I think they didn't do anything to remedy that during the January transfer window. They brought in Rebecca Knack, who's been good, yes, but she can't fix all of City's defensive problems on her own. And I think actually, in some ways, she's been better as an attacking signing than a defensive one, right? So for City, I think the other thing, though, in that derby, you just felt like United just wanted it so much more. United were playing a derby and City were just running around in the park, it felt like at times. But yes, injuries, you absolutely have to say it has hampered them. But there is something deeper wrong at City. And I also I'm not sure that Nick Cushing's going to stick around,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, since he's come in, he has the chance to have progressed through 2 competitions.
Yeah.
And obviously it hasn't quite worked out for him. So
yeah, it can't fall with him though, can it? In terms of he's
Yeah.
come in really late. Although he has taken, in that interview, he did take quite a bit of the flack for it. He said, I was brought in to do these things and I've not, so we've fallen short. But yeah, that will be an interesting one to see what happens with the manager situation.
Well, do you want to hear my speaking of hot takes?
Yeah, go
do you
on.
want to hear my hot take on who
Little
I
preview.
think might come in at Man City?
Hit me.
I was watching the post-match when they were doing their little huddle afterwards, and I spotted a certain former England captain, Steph Houghton, and she was rallying the
Stop.
players, and I was thinking, I was at
Okay.
Man City in that box. I'd be thinking, yeah, actually, who would be a great person to come in and pick these players up? And I thought it because Renee Slagers is a former player, right? Sonia Bompasta is a former player. They've both really connected with their teams. I think they get what's going on in the dressing room.
Yeah.
They have that camaraderie. Steph Houghton would be the perfect player to come in, and she's so close to some of the players, but I think also has that right level of authority where she'd, still be able to kind of get things going. I just think it, if she fancies going into management, there's the job for her.
I mean, she is a legend of the game, so that
Exactly.
would be perfect.
I would
Yeah, that's a
love to
proper
see
hot
that.
take.
Another
That'd be
female
so
manager
good.
in the WSL.
Yes.
Bring it on.
Heard
Bring
it
it
here
on.
first.
Well, that moves us on to talk about Arsenal, the third team who will be
Smile
playing
shots.
Champions League football next year. Of course, they've still got their big Champions League final to come, which I don't want to take away from that achievement, but we are going to talk about recent WSL results, which have been less than impressive. They lost to Villa on Wednesday night, 5-2. They lost to Brighton 4-2. What has happened to their defence? Their sort of willingness to get over the line and win? Has it just fizzled? They thought we're not going to win the WSL?
I mean, that is the question, because as a fan of the club, I've been watching and I felt so connected to the club for pretty much the majority of the season. I think more so after Jonas left, I felt so connected and so passionate, and Arsenal will find a way, will always find a way. And then suddenly in the last week, I mean, I know Slagers has come forward and mentioned it. Leah Williamson has come forward and mentioned that maybe getting through to the final has been a distraction. And I understand that Slagers wants to rest maybe a couple of players. But if she rests like our main players, Arsenal's main players for the weekend game, obviously last game of the season, that I think will rile up a lot of fans. I feel like that will get people going a bit annoyed, because this is a game that we really need to fight for. But maybe if we weren't as complacent in the last couple of games, we might not actually be in that position. So I'm very confused. I think it is mostly player management in terms of like the picking the squad. Definitely has fallen a bit short in those spaces. I do feel like Zinsberger as well is getting a lot of stick. I think some of it is fair when you look at certain decisions. sadly, I feel like she's now being trolled a lot on social media, and I keep seeing clips, and I don't want to be seeing this, because if you support your club, you should support your players. I don't think just because they've had a poor touch or poor game, but I think the issue here is that it's repeated. There's a pattern. It's when the ball goes into the box, Arsenal fans are kind of a bit scared that, oh, where's she going to kick it? Is it going to take a deflection? They're suddenly going to tap it in, because that's what's happened, and that's why we've conceded so many goals as Arsenal. The last couple of games, it's mostly down to our defence, but it's not just her, it is the defensive line in front. I mean, Catley, she's not a centre-back, she's more on the wing, and then Leah Williamson's used to playing up. It's just
but then Catley moving into centre-back was almost hailed as a genius move when it worked for the Champions League. So it's like, you can't win it all, you can't win them all, can you?
The thing is, I think what the problem now with these past two results, and it has to be said, Brighton certainly have not been a bad team at all this season. They were great, and obviously those two wonder strikes from Kirby and Trankovic, obviously there's nothing you can do about those kind of goal. And obviously Villa, I know have had like the weirdest season ever, but they are strong when they're good. But I think what everyone's talking about now is how Arsenal have fallen off a cliff, and they've never played like this before. But the problem is you're comparing it to that result against Lyon, and that result only, because everyone's forgotten everything else about the rest of the season, when the reality is Arsenal haven't played like they played against Lyon the whole season. It's been somewhere in the middle. They were never that good, but they weren't quite this bad either. And I think we're kind of holding them to that standard. So whether or not they're having this hangover from that result, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But I think we're now expecting them to get like a Brighton, a Villa. Yes, you should be beating them 10-0 if you can get past Lyon. And for them, that also must mentally be quite difficult. But it is worrying, because I think and I actually think this is a good thing for Arsenal, because it's going to force them to confront some of their issues that they've been having all season, like heading over the post, missing opportunities that you just have to put away when you're that clinical team. Chelsea put those kind of opportunities away, and Arsenal are not. So actually, if they can fix these before the final against Barcelona, this is going to work in their favour. So they have to see it like that.
Yeah, and they've got their big fixture against Barcelona, May 24th in Lisbon. Do you think this is worrying for this to be happening, like, I guess, so soon? Like, should they be worried ahead of Barcelona?
I think it's really hard to say, because as a fan, you're not too reassured with the recent performances. Like you said, I do think everyone's so fixated on the Lyon performance, and it's actually such a good point. I didn't even think of it that, for the rest of the season, we haven't had those performances. So we almost gave our all, acting as if it was the final, because for us, everything was on the line. But I do think now, heading into the final game, there definitely needs to be those changes made. I mean, for the actual final itself, I do feel like Arsenal can still do it. Arsenal have proved that they can perform when they need to. It's just whether players are fit and the right players are put together, because I do feel like certain players complement certain players, if that makes sense. I do think, obviously, like you said, preparing for next season, our summer recruitment will definitely be really good, hopefully, because we've progressed so far. Hopefully there's more money in it, but I do feel like it has worried a lot of people, understandably.
Yeah. Well, moving on to other drama that we saw this weekend, and the championship, the women's championship.
Yes.
I mean, what a final
Exciting.
day. Exciting stuff. Yeah, we had, of course, London City Lionesses, the team to come up to the WSL next season. Super, super exciting. We spoke a bit about them last week in terms of what they can offer, what they can bring. It was so tight. That game ended in a draw. You've got to feel for Birmingham City in that instance. But focusing on London City, because I think we've got to give credit where credit's due. And what do you think they'll bring to the WSL next season?
Oh, I'm so excited to see them in the WSL. This is the most excited I've ever been for a promoted team, honestly. And I think, we've spoken about the way that they conduct themselves, and obviously Michelle Kang and the investment that she's brought. And yes, we discussed, is that multi-ownership model good for football? Well, maybe we'll find out in the next couple of years. But they're going to come up and they're going to say to other teams, we're staying up. They've already said we're going to stay up in their post-match interviews. That's what they're going in to do. And if you look at where they've come, even in the season, they weren't even in the promotion race last season in the championship. And yet now here they've come up and they're going to challenge the likes of, I think, Leicester, Everton, maybe even get higher than that. And I think they're the kind of team who in a couple of years want to be challenging for the WSL. And that is so good for the women's game. And some of the players, honestly, in that team, I can't imagine the signings they're going to make. I think this is going to be one of the busiest summer transfer windows we've had ever in the WSL, and I think they're going to be a huge part of it if they want to stay up.
Yeah, and we've had a comment in from Lucky666. He says, do you think London City will challenge in the WSL in the next few years? Rich owner and team based in London can attract top players. I assume they mean challenge for the title.
Yeah.
I think there's no reason why not, right?
Honestly, why not? When you look at players,
they'll definitely stay up. I think London City Lionesses being promoted to the WSL, it's just a breath of fresh air. I feel obviously what the club stands for, they obviously have a female owner, and this is why you invest in women's sport. I think it just proves it's a great example of taking a club that had to dissociate from the men's a few years ago from Millwall, and then they've just created their own version, their own brand identity, and it's something so refreshing to see.
Yeah.
I mean, the actual game itself, so much more exciting than I think these WSL fixtures will be, and that's exciting to see. I think you do see it with obviously the men's game as well, how the championship can be more exciting, but with the WSL, it was only a few seasons ago I remember going to the Arsenal West Ham game, and then I think it was based on if Arsenal won and then Chelsea won their game, who wins basically. But this season, because Chelsea have dominated so much, it's almost been quite a dull title race, to put it lightly. But then with the championship, it's been so exciting, and I hope that that will happen next season. Hopefully we can get even more teams into WSL. But London City Lionesses, I love what they stand for. Isabel Goodwin, unreal player. That goal, crazy.
Amazing.
Seeing her in the WSL, and they've obviously got a lot of players. I mean, they've got a lot of Arsenal loanee players as well. So they're not a side like Crystal Palace. I don't think we're ready. They weren't prepared. Their squad depth wasn't too great. Whereas now I know that London City Lionesses, they've got that foundation with those players, and hopefully they can retain a lot of them.
Yeah.
And like you said, fund more players, because it should be a good season for them.
And some players who are catching the eye of Serena Wiegman as well. You know, it's a really exciting time for this club. Of course, the first independent club to ever reach the top flight, so no affiliation to a men's team, which you already touched on. I think that in itself makes it so exciting to see what that means, and people are becoming clubs of London City Lionesses for being London City Lionesses, nothing to do with any men's team. So that's, like you say, refreshing, really great to see. And I think the other thing we touched on there was the multi-ownership. And I saw Michelle Kang talk last week at an event. And I think in men's football, multi-ownership is seen as maybe a bit greedy. And she said, actually, with women's football, we're not there yet. It's a better model to have this multi-ownership, because it means we can share learnings, and when we need to invest in the medical how to grow a team, all these things that they're learning, they can apply that across many clubs and bring them all up, and share those, I guess, economies of scale to some extent, of really bringing all those clubs up. So I think that was a really interesting point she made, that it's not about greed, and I think people should see it as a really positive move.
No, definitely. I think also when you look at the clubs, it's Lyon and Washington Spirit, and I think obviously one being in separate leagues themselves are really good, but also we've just seen Lyon, they're competing on such a global stage right now, that if the London City Lionesses are influenced at all by these other two clubs, they're going to be pushing for that WSL title in the next few seasons, definitely, because they have that within their nature as obviously the ownership. So definitely a good move for them.
Yeah, I think we're suspicious of wealth sometimes in football, aren't we? And one of the worries, I suppose, is what happens if that owner lets go of that particular club and leaves them high and dry. And I suppose that is obviously something that they do need to be wary of. But hopefully, if the London City Lionesses continue to perform in the WSL, then they become such an attractive investment opportunity anyway, that will never be a danger for them. But
I feel like how Michelle speaks in interviews and how she comes across, she seems genuine, which I think is so rare. We hate on a lot of owners as football fans, which I think is understandable because they see it as a business, whereas she's somehow been able to see London City Lionesses as a business prospect, but also they're actually going to do so well in the WSL.
And how good was it to see her pick up that
Oh
trophy and take it to the
So
team?
good.
It was iconic, actually
Literally.
so iconic. Bring it on. Looking forward to next season.
I'm a huge fan of her, so I hope they do well.
She's so cool.
Yeah, looking forward to next season with them in, and then hopefully they can push other teams towards more investment.
Yeah.
Well, time to turn to something slightly different now. In advance of the Euros, we'll probably see many companies, brands putting their name against women's football. And one of those brands who have been involved in women's football is Rexona. And Rexona are also known as Sure in the UK, as you might know them, the deodorants, amongst other things that they do. And I caught up recently with their global brand director, Heath, who spoke to me about the importance of those partnerships and how they're using them to get more girls into playing football. And she also spoke about their recent brand ambassador, Lucy Bronze.
The women's side of football is really interesting for us as a brand and a business. You know, it's vastly different from men's, and I think people always think, oh, it's the same, but it's not. You know, it talks to different audiences. It talks to mainly families. It talks to younger people. The conversation is very different. It's about social change, driving equality. And so therefore you can actually do different types of creative on the women's side. So it's a really exciting time to be in women's football. I'd say the moment which really was our we're here to stay moment was the Women's World Cup in 2023. That was us putting like a big stake in the ground to say we're here, we're committed to the cause, we're committed to helping grow women's football, one for us as a brand and then for women as well.
And you mentioned there the importance of aligning with your values. What would you say those core values are?
Essentially, the why we exist is we want people to move more. The reason we want people to move more is our products are designed to work better when you move. So we need people to move for that to make happen. So therefore, when we think about the people we want to work with, movement sport is at the heart of them. But we want to work with properties that essentially believe in the same things we do in terms of wanting to drive equality, make it more open to more people. We have to have that shared values, that shared sort of destination for us to want to partner.
And you've mentioned the Breaking Limits programme. I'd love to hear a bit more about that and also the impact you've observed from that so far.
Yeah, so the Breaking Limits programme started in 2021 and it's currently live in over 11 markets, and we have two sides of the programme. One side which works with NGOs, so going deep into the heart of the local communities where the issue is most big, I guess. We look at it across race, gender, ability and kind of socioeconomic background. And then the other side is looking at it from a school's point of view. So we have schools programs in Colombia, the UK, Saudi, Argentina, and that's really trying to impact both the primary and secondary school between the ages of 9 to 14 to ensure that kids understand the benefits of taking part. And we also intercepting at that age specifically with girls where they might possibly drop out of sport. So there's two sides. I think the programme's doing great. You know, we are reaching significant numbers. We're in 11 markets. We're partnering with over 43 NGOs. And then in the UK alone, we are working with 2,000 schools. But what's also great is hearing that more qualitative feedback from the young people and the coaches, teachers. The young people are saying that they feel more confident to take part. And then the coaches and teachers are saying that they feel more equipped and knowledgeable about how to be supporting young people. So I think it's truly successful. I think it's doing good things. It's still quite a young programme. We have ambitions to get into all of the markets that we operate in. So we're in over 100 markets. So we've got a fair way to go. But we're in the markets that are biggest for us as a business. And so therefore, I think we're making big strides.
You've just got a new exciting partnership with an amazing footballer. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, Lucy. I mean, talk about fangirl moment. I fell in love with Lucy before the Women's Euros in 22. I think it was the Women's World Cup I've lost track of the years due to COVID now. Must have been 2019, where she was I think player of the tournament. She is an incredible talent, and I'm just so pleased that she's joined Chelsea because that gives us that opportunity to work with her. I think she's going to be she's still one of the ones to watch. And so I expect at the Euros this year that she's going to be getting a lot of attention, a lot of pitch time, and she really does inspire that generation. You know, she's very real whilst being incredible. So for us, we couldn't be more excited to have.
That was Heath, Global Brand Director at Rexona, who I was lucky enough to catch up with. Really great to hear from her about everything Rexona are doing to grow women's football, and of course that exciting partnership with Lucy Bronze. So watch this space. They'll be involved in the Euros and beyond. They are here to stay in women's football. So thank you very much, for taking the time to speak with us. Now, back to WSL action and things we saw at the weekend. I'm going to do a bit of a hot takes corner. I teased this a little bit at the beginning, and the rationale for this is because in Mark Skinner's post-match interview, which you can watch on YouTube, every interview that we show today in the show can be found in full on our YouTube channel, so please do check it out. But yes, in Mark Skinner's post-match press conference, he was praising the fans, and he said, Manchester United are the biggest club in the world. And I take that as a bit of a hot take, as in, I think there's been a lot of criticism around whether the women's team is prioritised in that same way. So that's going to be my first question to you. I want you to agree or disagree with my hot take. So this is first hot take. Are Man United the biggest club in the world?
It's such a hard one, isn't it? Because if we are talking about women's football, absolutely not. They're not at all. And I know what Mark Skinner was probably saying, but based on what he said alone there, they're not. And do they have the potential to be? Maybe, if they keep kind of going in the right direction. But I think until they have the backing of the club, to be honest, even when you talk about Manchester United, the men's side at the moment, I'm not sure they deserve to be the biggest club in the world. It's most of that international aspect of it, isn't it? And the international fans being drawn to the club as a brand. But I don't think they deserve it anymore. I'm a Man United men's fan, so that can be another hot take. I support two different teams.
Hot take.
We'll get onto that later.
We'll revisit that another week, I think. Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to disagree as well, because I know they've got this reputation around the world, and I know they've got their history. But right now, if we're looking at current day, right now, what have they done? I mean, the men's side, which is pretty much what he was basing it off, they definitely are on a bit of a decline right now. Ownership, management, it's all a bit all over the place, a bit chaotic. The women's game is not there yet. I like how Mark Skinner worded them as quite a young club. And I was like, it's so true, because obviously they only came about in 2018, same as Spurs women. So I feel like they are young. So we can't be saying they're the best when they have only been around for 6-7 years. So they definitely can't be the biggest club right now. But overall, I feel like the men's side definitely do have that status, but in a few years' time, I reckon if they keep declining, it will definitely go.
Okay, well, there you go. You heard it here first. Okay, my next hot take.
I'm getting nervous for these.
No, the League Cup should be scrapped.
Oh,
I've heard this one before.
Thoughts? I don't. These aren't my opinions, by the way.
We come up with
yeah, of course. I mean, I'm interested
to
hear your thoughts. We of course saw Chelsea and City in the final this year. It was played in Derby. Lots of criticism about the pitch. I mean, last year Arsenal won it. It's these.
I feel like it has been tainted and sort of labelled as the Mickey Mouse Cup. In terms of women's football, people don't take it as seriously. I mean, obviously that's what Arsenal were holding on to the last few seasons, saying that, well, we've won a Conti Cup or the League Cup or whatever it's branded by. We've won that cup, but then in the grand scheme of things, if you said, oh, you won a Champions League or that, it's still both one like piece of silverware, still one trophy, but the cup just doesn't have as much value. I think also congestion in fixtures, it really doesn't help with injuries, which is a sort of the reasoning or the excuse, however you want to see it, that a lot of clubs are coming to right now, that there's so many games. I mean, Man City and Chelsea played each other 4 times because of the WSL, the cup games, and then the Champions League. Like, there's so many competitions.
Yeah, that was one of those 4, wasn't
it? Literally. But I do think it's a good opportunity for clubs to get more investment. So I feel like I'm giving both sides of it.
That's okay. You might not have an answer.
Because my only worry is if they did scrap the League Cup, I'm sure they'd just replace it with something else. They would not be able to hold off from filling up that spare time that they had with something else. And I know they're already adding in these like Club World Cup on the women's side and a Europa League style something or other. So maybe they wouldn't need the League Cup. The only argument that I do see is, you mentioned this pitch at Derby and the investment that it just wasn't getting. And if they're going to carry on doing that, then yes, they can scrap the League Cup because that was unacceptable. And we've already talked about how that was just a bad reflection on anybody. But yeah, I don't know why the League Cup gets so much hate. I know it's now the Subway League Cup, right?
Yeah.
Which nobody
I
really.
think that's
Well,
a cool
we
sponsor, to be
got
fair.
free Subway in the press room at the final, so
really?
I don't want
Actually,
it
so
scrapped
cool.
because of the free Subway.
As long as it stays with Subway and doesn't
Happy
go
about
back
that.
to the tyre.
So that's
God,
my hot
yeah.
take. Keep
You
the
get anything
Subway
with
Cup. I want-
Continental tyres, did you?
To be fair, I do feel like overall I've got to agree, like we've got to keep it. We can't wait. What was the question? The wording that it
Yeah,
was,
just should be scrapped.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we have to keep it.
Well, Lucky 666 agrees. League Cup is important for developing players. I think also it'd be good
true.
to
That's
good,
actually really
it's
true.
good for other
yeah.
teams too. But as it turns out, the other teams aren't really
If they dominate,
that's the
winning it.
problem, isn't it?
Okay, I've got my next hot take, which is there should be playoffs to decide promotion to the WSL.
Yes, alongside 2 teams getting promoted. I feel like that would be great.
Okay, so you want more teams promoted essentially, and to figure out the way those other extra teams are promoted is through playoffs. So similar to what we see in the championship with men's championship.
So say this season, obviously London City Lionesses would be automatically promoted because they came first, and then there's another spot up for grabs, because I think it's so gutting when you see these 2 teams so high up. I mean, it's trickled lower down. I know Bournemouth women have had such a great run of form in the last 2-3 seasons. They pretty much go unbeaten, and then it's maybe they drew 1 game instead of win it. That calls whether they get promoted or not, and that's I think that's like National League. So if you can, I feel like playoffs would be a great idea.
We've seen really exciting championship finishes the last 2 seasons, and other ones I can remember too. But it's like, how do we inject? Is that because there is not the playoffs that they have so much to play for that top spot? And would we lose that? That's the playing.
Do you not think it's rather than having a playoff then? Do you not think it should just be that 2 teams get promoted, because then Birmingham, but then we would have lost the jeopardy of that last game.
That was so juicy.
But that's what I'm saying. Like if you're Birmingham City and then you finish in second, and now you're thinking, I have to play a playoff, and I've done all this hard work.
No, but then it's almost like you still have a chance of going up. Whereas obviously London City, they deserve to go up straight away.
And would they play off with the 11th place team from WSL?
Oh,
that's how they do it in.
You know what? I really like. I know this is
they do that
topic, but I love that.
Scottish Premiership, don't they?
So you want to do in this
Palace
11, Palace playing off with Birmingham City?
No, Palace go down, but the 11th place team.
Oh, right.
So Villa.
Yeah,
so Villa could still go down.
Yeah, I think that would be fun.
I think we should just run this whole system.
Right. WSL, get in contact.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're changing up.
Okay, cool. We've got a next hot take, which is that Chelsea's squad depth is overrated.
Oh,
I'm gonna have to disagree, because I think you saw their slight drop in form recently, and I think if they didn't have their squad depth, they wouldn't be able to sustain this unbeaten season. I do feel like certain players that have been out, like Sam Kerr, I don't think she's actually missing from the squad at all, because they have so many other players. I do think there's other teams in the league that have this squad depth as well. Like, it definitely, I think they just had a really good season in terms of recruitment, which makes their squad depth look good. But yeah, I disagree. I feel like it can't be overrated when you have those names.
I'm going to agree with that. Shall I tell you why? Because when I was looking
scrap.
I know. No, because I was thinking about it this when I looked at Man City's like injury list and how many players they were injured. And I thought, if Chelsea were in that position, if like Guru Wrighton, Erin Cuthbert, Sandy Baltimore, Lucy Bronze are all out, they're not filling those kind of spaces. They're not. I don't think they have backups in so many of their positions who are actually able to perform. And I also don't think those backups have been given the opportunity this season.
I think they've got the names. Like, when I saw Kira Walsh going to Chelsea, I thought, right, this is game over. But since her being at Chelsea, I don't think she's shown the standard that we've seen when she's wearing an England shirt or in that Barca shirt. So I do understand that definitely it's... Yeah. I think in terms of the names, people have then
You're jumping to my next hot take. Well, I'll skip forward a few, which is Chelsea is not the team for Kira Walsh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm going to have to agree with that.
Okay, well, end of discussion.
No, do you know what? This is a really hot take about Kira Walsh. I think Kira Walsh is really overrated.
No,
especially since the Euros. I think she had a great Euros when they won.
She did.
And then since then, she has never performed the way she did during that Euros. I just think for England, everyone talks about her being this pivot figure. Every single time I watch her play for England, she can't control that midfield. I think Grace Clinton does it better, honestly, I do. Even Ella Toon, who I think has some issues with kind of keeping possession. I just think Kira Walsh, she never looks confident anymore. And I don't know if that's a personal journey she's going through, whether what happened with Barcelona, maybe she didn't quite fit in there. Or, well, obviously they did well when she was at Barcelona, but she decided not to stay, came to Chelsea. I don't think she's been one of their shining stars at all. So I don't think she's found her team, and I don't know who it would be.
Okay.
I mean, I do think in terms of obviously what you're saying about Kira Walsh, like I do agree that maybe at Chelsea, she definitely, it's not her club, it's not for her. She hasn't quite found where she's able to complement other players, which I think is so shocking, because for me, I love watching her in an England shirt, and especially if we're going back to the Euros, she would cover multiple positions, but that is going back to about 3-4 seasons ago. So I do understand that maybe right now she's not quite there yet.
It's not there.
Okay, final hot take. Liverpool are in threat of relegation next season with London City Lionesses coming up. The amount they've spent on agent fees is 70k compared to London City Lionesses 110. Keep it brief. I just want a yes or no.
It's so funny. I was talking about this at the weekend. Someone asked me who I thought might go down next season. I said Liverpool.
You said Liverpool. Wow, there you go.
Liverpool.
See, I'm going to have to disagree. I'm shocked, because I think Spurs, West Ham, one of them two, they will be the team. And obviously only one team goes down, so...
Yeah,
for now. Okay, well, we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on who might get relegated next season, amongst anything else. Do you agree with our hot takes? Do you disagree? Let us know. What are your hot takes? Please do continue the conversation in the comments on our HaytersTV YouTube channel. We will be back next week at the usual time of Monday at 4 p.m. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to follow us on all our socials at HaytersTV, and we shall see you next week.